Growing up in Greenwich, Connecticut in the Harrington household meant understanding your place in the family hierarchy. By the time you were 7, my younger sister Savannah was the undisputed golden child. She had our mother Beatrix's striking looks and our father Richard's terrifying talent. For social climbing, Savannah was groomed for high society. I was simply there. I was the quiet overachiever, the girl who skipped the debutante ball to learn coding and who moved out at 18 to attend MIT on a partial scholarship, working 3 jobs to cover the rest. My parents never saw my independence as a virtue. To them, my lack of interest in the Greenwich social circuit was a personal insult. When I founded a boutique logistics software firm in my mid-20s, they nodded politely and asked when I was going to find a suitable husband. They didn't know because I never told them that 3 years later I quietly sold that software firm to a massive tech conglomerate named Kessler and Hayes for a sum that completely altered the trajectory of my life. I was 28, independently wealthy, and entirely free. It was during the final stages of that corporate buyout that I met Liam. Liam Gallagher was a brilliant, grounded architect who loved me for my sharp edges and relentless drive. We didn't care about status or performing for an audience. When he proposed on a rainy Tuesday in our shared Brooklyn apartment, it was perfect. We spent the next 8 months planning an elegant, understated wedding in the Hudson Valley. We booked a beautiful historic barn, hired a farm-to-table catering company, and set our date, September 14th. It was a year away. We sent our save-the-dates, paid our non-refundable deposits, and for a brief, fleeting moment, my parents actually seemed happy for me. Then Preston Sterling proposed to Savannah. Preston was exactly what my parents had always dreamed of for their favorite daughter. He was the heir to a staggering New England shipping fortune, possessed a jawline straight out of AGQ catalog, and had the intellectual depth of a puddle. Savannah's engagement ring was a 5-carat monstrosity that practically required its own zip code. And the moment it slipped onto her finger, my wedding officially ceased to exist in my parents' minds. At first, it was just the usual overshadowing. Family dinners turned into monologues about Preston's family estate in Newport. My mother, Beatrice, who had promised to help me pick out floral arrangements, suddenly became too overwhelmed with Savannah's engagement party to return my calls. I brushed it off. I was used to it, and Liam and I were paying for our own wedding anyway. But the real twist came 3 months later at a Sunday brunch at my parents' estate. We were sitting on the terrace when Savannah tapped her mimosa glass with a silver spoon. "Preston and I have finally chosen a date," she announced, her eyes gleaming with a manic performative joy. "We're doing a late summer wedding, September 14th. The silence at the table was so absolute you could hear the distant hum of the lawnmowers on the neighboring estate. Liam tightened his grip on my hand under the table. I stared at my sister, waiting for the punchline. "Savannah," I said slowly, "that's my wedding day. You know that. We sent the save the dates out 5 months ago." Savannah pouted, her lower lip jutting out in a practiced display of innocence. "I know, Chloe, but the Sterling's astrologer looked at our charts and September 14th is the only auspicious date for our union this year. Plus, the Greenwich Country Club only had that Saturday left. You understand, right? Yours is just a small thing upstate. You can easily move it." I looked at my parents, expecting them to intervene, to point out the sheer insanity of her request. Instead, my father, Richard, cleared his throat and avoided my gaze. "Chloe, be reasonable," my mother said, buttering a croissant without looking up. "The Starings have international guests flying in. The logistics are incredibly complex. Your little barn gathering is lovely, but Savannah's wedding is going to be a major societal event. You can't possibly expect her to compromise." They weren't asking me. They were telling me. The hierarchy had spoken. The fallout from that brunch was swift and brutal. I refused to move my date. I told Savannah that she was free to get married whenever she wanted. But Liam and I were keeping our venue. I thought that would be the end of it. That we would simply have 2 weddings on the same day. and our family would have to split their time or make a choice. I vastly underestimated my parents' capacity for betrayal. 2 weeks later, I was summoned to my father's mahogany-paneled library. My mother was sitting on the leather sofa, clutching a cup of Earl Grey like it was a lifeline. "We need to discuss this stubborn streak of yours," my father began, bypassing any pleasantries. "Savannah is incredibly distressed. Preston's mother is already whispering about family friction. We are paying over $200,000 for Savannah's reception. Chloe, we cannot be into places at once." "Then you'll have to choose," I said, my voice eerily calm. "We already have," my mother snapped, dropping the pretense of maternal warmth. "We are walking Savannah down the aisle. She needs us. Preston's family expects us to host. If you insist on keeping this date, you will be doing it without your family. No parents, no aunts, no cousins. I've already spoken to the extended family. They agree that you are being entirely unreasonable and jealous." They had launched a preemptive strike. My mother had weaponized the family gossip mill, painting me as a bitter, jealous spinster who was intentionally trying to sabotage her younger sister's high society debut. And Miriam left me a scathing voicemail, calling me spiteful. My cousin Bradley texted me to stop being a brat and let Savannah have her day. Looking at my parents in that cold, expensive room, a profound sense of clarity washed over me. I had spent my entire life trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. "Okay," I said. My father blinked, clearly expecting a fight. "Okay, you'll move the date." "No," I replied, standing up. "Okay, you've made your choice. You don't have to worry about the conflict anymore. You, Mom, and anyone else who received a save the date from me are officially uninvited. Have a wonderful time in Greenwich." I walked out of the house without looking back. When I got back to our Brooklyn apartment, I finally broke down. Liam held me on the kitchen floor for an hour, his own anger simmering just beneath the surface. He offered to cancel the barn, to elope to City Hall, to fly to Vegas, whatever I wanted to do to escape the humiliation. But as my tears dried, a different emotion took over. It wasn't just anger. It was a fierce, protective desire to reclaim my joy. I wasn't going to let Savannah relegate my wedding to a pity party. I looked up at Liam, who was furiously searching for available dates at the city clerk's office on his phone. "Cancel the barn," I told him, my voice steadying. "But we aren't going to City Hall." I walked over to the antique writing desk in our living room, unlocked the bottom drawer, and pulled out a thick leather-bound portfolio. I handed it to Liam. He opened it, his brow furrowing as he looked over the Italian legal documents, the property deeds, and the glossy architectural photographs. "Chloe, what is this? When Kessler and Hayes bought my company last year, I didn't just put the money in an index fund," I explained, a small smile finally breaking through. "I wanted something tangible. An investment, a retreat, a place that was entirely mine, away from the Greenwich noise." Liam stared at a photograph of a sprawling 17th century stone estate surrounded by ancient cypress trees, manicured olive groves, and an infinity pool that seemed to drop off into the rolling hills of the Val d'Orcia. "This is Villa di Fiore," I said softly. "It's an $8 million estate in Tuscany, and it's mine, fully paid off." Liam was speechless. He looked from the deed, which clearly bore the name Chloe Harrington, back to me. "You own a Tuscan villa, a literal palace." "I do, and it has a consecrated chapel on the grounds, a commercial kitchen, and enough suites to sleep 40 people comfortably." I took his hands. "We are going to take the money we saved for the Hudson Valley wedding. We are going to send out new heavy cards stock invitations to our 40 closest friends and chosen family. We are flying them to Italy, all expenses paid. We are getting married at my villa." Liam's shock melted into a brilliant, wicked grin. "A secret Italian estate. God, I love you." Over the next few months, while Savannah turned into a shrieking nightmare, dealing with a 400-person guest list, fighting with Preston's overbearing mother over napkin rings, and draining my parents' bank accounts, Liam and I quietly orchestrated a masterpiece. We hired a local Michelin-starred chef in Florence. We arranged for private town cars to pick up our friends from the airport in Rome. We kept it entirely off social media. To my parents and extended family, I had simply vanished into humiliated silence, licking my wounds after being outshone by the golden child. They had no idea that while they were preparing for a stuffy, exhausting country club pageant, I was preparing to host the event of a lifetime. The stage was set, and the collision course was inevitable. September 14th arrived, bringing with it a profound, almost cinematic study in contrasts. If I had hired a screenwriter to script the karma that weekend, they would have told me it was too on the nose.